Hey there, internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of AC Discovery, my weekly show where I sit down and talk about anime and or comics. We've reached the penultimate episode of my run-through of Death Note, the anime. We're going to talk about episodes Vigilance and Malice today, which are, almost the last two episodes. Next week will be the final two episodes of the show. These are the two before that. Today was the first time since L died that I felt like the game of cat and mouse was actually back in play. Both characters, both Light and Nier here, were kind of at odds with each other and kind of constantly one-upping each other and figuring out traps to lay for the other one and identifying each other's plans. And so finally it was back to a cerebral game of who really knows what's going on. In Vigilance, you have Aizawa continuing to suspect correctly that Light and Kiwami are communicating through written notes in their little private meetings in the hotel rooms. He made a fingernail mark on one of the notepads, and then when he went back to check the room afterwards, it was gone. So the notepad had been swapped out. So he was like, "Yep, Light's clearly doing something there." In one of those meetings, Kiwami talks to Light about Misa's plan to announce their engagement publicly at an upcoming festival. Light explains via notes with them that he had to bring her into the whole Kira fold because she had gotten Kira's power and had figured out that he was Kira himself. Whereas now he is choosing to be with Kiwami, so once again he's kind of setting her up to believe in him and believe that she's doing everything for him because he wants to do things for her. But, we kind of know Light, and he'll drop her as quickly as he can, as we will later see. Knowing that they're being taped and recorded, Light and Kiwami put on a show, so to speak, mostly for Matsuda, who continues to be one of my most frustrating character archetypes, the unprofessional professional, the guy who should be, good at his job, but instead just, goes crazy and over the top, with his stupidity. And here it's him going nuts over gossip when he should be focusing on a goddamn case and wiretapping, and he's instead being like, "Oh my god, Misa's in trouble," or "Oh my god, Light's in trouble." It's just, Matsuda, I get that you're a trope, and I get that you're an archetype. Doesn't mean I have to like you. Anyway, the show that they're putting on is that they basically say, well, if we want to be together, then Kira must be arrested. We have to put an end to Kira, as if they're actually going to do that. Seemingly, it's they're going to set somebody up to take the fall. Elsewhere, we have Nier continuing to follow Mikami and capturing footage of him talking about a Shinigami. He kind of mentions silently that the Shinigami gave him the Death Note and then just left and never came back. Presumably that was Ryuk handing him Light's old Death Note. After confirming his suspicions with the notepad, Aizawa goes to Nier to admit his suspicions and that he thinks L is Kira. But Nier basically says, "Cool, good job. This no longer involves you. We're way above your level at this point, and your task force is meaningless, is moot." And that kind of hubris bothers me from the hero character, quote-unquote hero character. I hope it doesn't, backfire for them, but we'll see where that goes. He basically says, if you want to, keep pursuing this, just keep looking after L as you have been, but, the big boys are going to handle it, basically, is what he's saying. You have the SPK abducting Misa and Mogi, who Aizawa had given the heads up from the pop festival in order to kind of throw a curveball into whatever Light was planning. Light, it doesn't seem to affect things negatively, but it does take Misa and Mogi off the board for the time being, for a few weeks it looks like. And then the last big thing we have in this episode is Giovanni, who's the agent who has been following Teru Mikami, is tasked with touching the notebook to see if there is a Shinigami following them. He does. He ends up not seeing anything, but then Nier suspects that because the Death Note writer can control a person, they try and figure out how long they can control the person, and it sounds like Mogi comes in with saying, based on our estimates, 23 days. Kind of arbitrarily out of nowhere, but Nier decides that he's going to wait 24 days to believe what Giovanni's saying, because he could be lying. He could be under the control of the Death Note. He also takes pictures of the Death Note. All of this, of course, because Mikami hits the gym every day like clockwork, as you do in TV shows like this, or movies like this, very conveniently for the plot. Moving on into Malice, we have a quiet montage to open the show. Mello is still watching from the shadows. Nier gets Giovanni to swap out Mikami's notebook with, like, their own created duplicate. But that's exactly what Light was anticipating Nier would do, and Mikami is diligent and meticulous, and he reviews the notebook to recognize that it's been tampered with. So he lets Kiwami know through a special little signal that they'd identified, i.e. a let's meet up kind of text. So Light knows, yep, Nier has made the swap, now all I gotta do is wait until Nier contacts me, and then I can, continue this game of chess. But I'm left here thinking, well, neither notebook has the Shinigami, and Mello has already told Nier that if you're, in possession of a notebook, you'll see a Shinigami. So I got to imagine that the fake that that Takumi had been using, Nier has to know that it's a fake at this point, right? That's got to be a thing. So it seems to be like that's where it seems like, oh, each of them, thinks they're really knowing what the other one's doing. And I think maybe Nier has the edge here, because we don't see it. It hasn't been, told to us, but he has that knowledge, so he has to know that the notebook that Takami was using... this is the other problem. All the new people that have been introduced and highlighted in the last few episodes have very... and this is probably racially insensitive, I don't know, but they all have such similar sounding names that I get confused. It would be like if it was a Mike and a Mark and a Matt. I would get confused at who was who that I'm talking about. Anyway, the lawyer guy, who's seeming to be set up as the fall boy for Kira, had been using a fake notebook, which also begs the question how the guy from a couple episodes ago, who died on the subway, how he actually died if that was a fake notebook. But don't think they're going to come back and circle back to that. That was probably just a red herring. Yay. But if the notebook that he was using is fake, and the one that Nier has given him is fake, I figure everybody's, Nier at least has to know that both notebooks were fake, so, gotta double down on Light being Kira and figure out how those other people are still dying. Nier does call up and sets a plan for everybody to meet up in a few days' time, and again, this is the epitome of where we get to see kind of that old Light and L dynamic of both characters really trying to suss out what the other one knows, and we get to see through their internal monologues what they think the other person knows, and so we get to see, Nier making the calculations of, okay, well, lawyer guy makes, does all of his killing, shortly after midnight, and so he's probably getting his directions of who to kill in the mornings, so let's go with 1 o'clock. And then Light's like, haha, he's tracking the lawyer guy's kill schedule, so of course he would have said 1 o'clock. And then Nier's like, here's where we're going to meet. This should be where you want to put your plan into play, right, Light? Right, L? And Light's like, that's a perfect place for my plan. So it seems like, yeah, they potentially are evenly matched here, which is a good feeling to have again as we near the end of the series. So after this meeting is put into play, Light orders Kiwami to kill Nier in whatever way they're going to do that. Kiwami and Takumi. Again, if I don't have the name right in front of me as I'm trying to go through this, it's a guessing game. But Mello kind of intervenes, and he and his accomplice show up, throw a smoke bomb, kidnap Kiwami, and then Mello loses the security detail that was following her. The police just immediately kill Mello's accomplice because he was defying Kira, so Japan's not in a great place. Kiwami is forced to strip, but she was hiding some pages of the Death Note in her bra and sneakily gets away with, getting a blanket from Mello before she strips fully nude, so she's able to use those pages of the Death Note to kill Mello because, again, Light had tipped her off on, hey, this is the most dangerous person on this game of chess, Mihail, whatever his real name was. So she writes that name. He drives into a building, a church-ish kind of thing, dies. She calls and basically is kind of told, you know what to do from Light. And she's like, okay, gotta kill as many people as I can. They all go to try and find her, and Light pulls the thing out of his watch, kills her, and says she's going to die by suicide by burning everything around her, including her pages of the Death Note. So yeah, Light basically uses her as a tool, just as he uses everything else. And that's kind of what we see in the last moments of this. Like he sees nothing in humanity anymore. He just sees people that he can use for his gain, or people he can kill. And, yeah, it'll be good, hopefully, to see him get some comeuppance in the final 2 episodes next week. So those are my thoughts on these episodes of Death Note. Let me know what you thought about them in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. Tune back in next week for my thoughts on the final 2 episodes of Death Note, and then I get to move on to something else. Probably going to do comics for a little bit, because I've been sorely lacking in the C part of AC Discovery, and I just ordered a few from Amazon to come do some reading. So that's kind of what I'm looking at in the future. But yeah, next week we will have the final episode of Trevor Watches Death Note, basically, and some impressions on the full series as kind of my first foray into watching anime. So tune in, and until next time, from here at the Trove, treasure your friends.